A couple weeks ago, HarperCollins came out with its new editions of the Silmarillion. Yes, that's right, editions, plural. There are two of them. There's the premium hardcover version, and then there's the ultra super duper premium quarter leather bound slipcase version. And we're gonna talk about the differences between these two, the similarities they have with the versions that they did of the Lord of the Rings last year, because there are some similarities and some key differences. So whether you're thinking about getting this for yourself, or maybe it's a gift for that Tolkien collector in your life, I'm gonna walk you through the quality of these books and whether I think that they're worth the price that they're going for right off the bat. The first thing to note about these is, like I said, they're very similar to these editions of The Lord of the Rings. So if you happened to get these last year, then you kind of know what you're in for here as well. I did a video on these Lord of the Rings editions last year when they came out, so you can go check out that video. Should be right there. Yeah, there it is. And I will kind of refer to these a little bit. There's at least one key difference between this and that version that I think makes the Silmarillion copy a little bit less attractive. But anyway, on to the Silmarillion. Let's start with the regular premium, the not ultra premium version, right? Okay, so this is, like I said, the premium hardcover version. The first thing to note on this right out of the box is the coloring on it. It's quite bold. Over on the Lord of the Rings side, that version of it was gray and it had, red page sides. I thought it was really attractive. This one, much more bold. The blue is somewhat muted, I guess, but then you compare it to that lime green of the page sides, and it really pops. It may be too bright for some people, but I think it looks all right, especially with the silver elvish along the top and the bottom. It's got a lot of nice detail on the dust jacket. When you slip the dust jacket off, it still looks pretty darn good. It's got this device on the front that you only get to see if you take off the dust jacket. And on the side of it, it does have some Tengwar script, kind of similar again to that edition of The Lord of the Rings that had the ring rhyme printed on the inside of those pages. This one has Tengwar script that I haven't bothered to translate yet. I haven't looked up if anybody has translated it. We can worry about that later. Point being, it definitely fits the mold, the theme of what we were going for with that edition. So let's get into the book now. So we open up the front cover and we get a loose map. Open up the back cover and we get another loose map. Now, all right, before we go any further, what is the difference between these maps? Well, the first one is in keeping with the big selling point of both of these editions, which is, if you look on that front cover, illustrated by the author. And that first map is our first taste of that. This is Tolkien's own map of Beleriand. That's pretty neat. The back cover insert is that same map, but this is the one that was done by Christopher Tolkien. It was colored by somebody else. I can't remember exactly who it was. It's inside the book, it'll tell you. But that's what we get inside the covers. Oh, and let me back up and note, before I actually dive in between the covers, that the cover is paper. This is not cloth, it is paper. And so what that means is if you're actually intending to read this, then both the dust jacket and the cover itself will absorb your hand oils. So is that a huge deal? Maybe not, but over time, if it's read again and again and again, it can get discolored that way, but really may not be too big a deal. Once we get inside, it is printed in two tones of ink, black and blue. Black for the main text, and then blue for the titles up top and the page numbers. Anything that needs accenting will be in that blue. If we look at the very beginning, it does list all of the illustrations in here, and it's an extensive list. You're thinking to yourself, my gosh, they put a lot of illustrations in here. And in a way they did. But the thing is, every chapter has its own chapter header illustrated by Tolkien. It's a device for some character from his books. He loved to come up with these patterns, these devices to represent his characters. Which is actually kind of cool. A lot of people may not have known that that's what all those little circular patterns that they saw were. And so you get a whole bunch of those in this book collected all in one place. Aside from those, you do get some actual illustrations, including some documents that would be of great interest to anybody who cares about such things, like me, maybe. So this is a manuscript title page from the Tale of Years in Tolkien's own hand. So really pretty interesting stuff. And then you get into the more illustraty illustrations like the Halls of Manwë or what have you. And while most of these things have been published elsewhere, it is really nice to get them all pulled together in one place so that you can kind of see Tolkien's vision not just in text, but how he envisioned his world as well. All of these are in full color, by the way, so if he did it in color or if somebody helped him do it in color, then that's how you get it presented in the book. And by the way, if you're curious how many illustrations are in here, well, there are 59 listed, 25 of which are those devices, so you're still getting 34 Tolkien original illustrations within this book, those full-size, full-color illustrations. Not bad. All right, so that's what's in there, but what about the quality of what we're holding? You know, I do like to talk about the actual paper involved and the binding and all of that stuff. How long is this gonna last? Well, as far as I can tell right out of the box, yeah, it is pretty darn well bound. The paper is nice and heavy, there's no gloss on it. The pages are sewn rather than glued, and that's always nice. You can actually tell if you hold it up and look through the spine, you can see all the way through it, and you can see where it is sewn rather than glued. This is always nice. Glue will crack and degrade over time. Smith sewn pages like this will hold up a lot better for archival purposes. That being said, it does feel like it's bound incredibly tightly, probably because of the weight of the pages themselves. But what that means in practical terms is that it doesn't hold open very easily. Now, part of that is also going to be because it's not the thickest book in the world, but still, when you lay it down on a table in front of you, you kind of want it to hold open, flat, right? Without having to break it in, crack any spines, anything like that. You want it to be able to hold open. This doesn't really do that very well, you know, right out of the box. As a comparison, we pull open that copy of The Lord of the Rings and do the same thing, and it actually holds open beautifully. Now, again, that could be partly because of the size of the book. It's much thicker. It's also probably a function of the thinness of these pages. Obviously, they had to fit well over 1,000 of these individual pages in there, and so they had to make them a bit thinner. That makes it easier for the book to hold open like this. Still, it's something to consider. When you're actually reading the book, it's going to take a little more effort for you to keep the pages open as you're reading it. Oh, and last but not least, let's not forget, yes, it does come with a little ribbon bookmark. It's really thin, which is good. You know, you don't want it to score up your pages, but it does feel a little bit cheap if I'm being honest, like it's gonna start fraying at the end before too long. But oh well, I'm not gonna throw too much of a fuss about that. All right, so that is the premium hardcover edition. I started with that one because the ultra premium leather-bound edition should be roughly kind of similar, but you know, better, right? I hope so, let's find out. All right, so like I said, this is the ultra premium version, the quarter leather-bound edition in a slipcase. So if we take it out of the slipcase, there we go. Uh-oh, all right. Well, the first thing we notice is that there's something else in there. There's a little booklet. This is a brief account of the book and its making by Christopher Tolkien. This is not new. This was published in 1977, and this is my least favorite thing about this edition of the Silmarillion. Typically, this would be found at the front of the book. You know, it's part of the forewords and that sort of thing. But in this case, they thought it was necessary to pull it out and create a separate kind of plastic cover booklet version of this. It's not that I hate this thing, but in this case, they thought it was necessary to pull it out and make a totally different, separate booklet thing. I'm not sure exactly what it's meant to accomplish by being separate. It's stapled together, which, I mean, fine, I guess. It's all of, what, 10, 15 pages, something like that. And it does have some of Tolkien's illustrations in here, but these are gonna be repeats. You'll find these in the main book anyway. So again, I don't get the benefit, but I do see one problem with it, which is that it creates a little more space necessary for the slipcase, which means that without that booklet, you know, if you were to take this out or, you know, you lend it out or it gets lost, whatever, then with the slipcase and the book itself, you have a little extra room and it kind of shakes around in there just a little bit. It's not egregious, but still, it's kind of disconcerting to have a slipcase that doesn't actually fit the book that's going in there. The only way that it really fits is if you keep this booklet and kind of stick it into the back behind the book itself. I don't like that at all, frankly. But let's set that aside for a moment and talk about the book itself. Okay, so the slipcase is blue cloth. You can see it's got a hole in the middle, and the device on the front, of course, peeks through that. So when we talk about something being quarter leather bound, this is what we're talking about. This blue part that you see here is leather. It's bonded leather. This is not the most expensive stuff out there, but it's bonded leather here on part of the cover, and then the rest of it is cloth. Now, I mentioned that the other edition is all paper on the cover and the dust jacket. In this case, I wanted to bring it up because cloth and even bonded leather are going to hold up a lot better over time than those paper versions. So if you are looking for something archival, something to keep in your collection to pass on to your great-grandkids or whatever, then this is definitely going to hold you in much better stead than the paper version. And this version does have some extras that the other doesn't. When we open up the cover and look inside, the first extra that we get that is different from the other edition is this, the Halls of Manwë. This is an illustration that is in the book, but they pull it out, make kind of a, it's almost a postcard size version of it. So what are you gonna do with that? I'm not entirely sure. It looks like it would be about the right size to go in a 5x8 picture frame, maybe, if you wanted to do something like that. But yeah, there it is. That is loose for you. I think they did that because they had some loose leaf stuff in the Lord of the Rings version last year. You know, pages from the Book of Mazarbul that were pretty cool, and they were looking for something else to put in here. That's the best they could come up with. I don't know, something like that. Otherwise, yeah, we do have maps. Again, a front cover, and then we open up the back cover, and there are our maps again. But this time, essentially, they're souped up, turbocharged versions of the same maps that we had. So I showed you the other one. Well, this one is just much, much larger. I haven't actually measured them. I don't know, it's probably twice the size as the one in the hardcover version. So there's the Tolkien version, and then here's the Christopher Tolkien version. Again, same thing as in the other edition, just, yeah, supercharged a little bit. Oh, and I should also note that this one does not have the Tengwar script along the page edges. This one is in a silver metallic gloss. And that essentially concludes the differences between the two copies. Everything else inside here, as far as I can tell, is identical to what you're gonna find in here, down to the weight of the paper, the gloss of the paper, you know, how well it will hold up on the table, i.e. not. And it even has the same kind of ribbon, this time in blue instead of silver. Okay, so now the question is, do I like these editions of the Silmarillion? Well, if I'm being honest, like I said earlier, I think I like them a little bit less than I liked the versions of the Lord of the Rings that came out last year, but not by a ton, and it's all about trade-offs. So for instance, when it comes to actual readability, I was talking a lot about how easily or not very easily it holds open in your hand. And that does kind of suck a little bit. But the trade-off for that is the weight of the paper that you're actually reading on, which can make a difference. It certainly makes a difference for archival reasons, but even as you're holding it and thumbing through the pages, it can be kind of satisfying to have something really substantial every time you turn the page. Now, the premium hardcover edition goes for 40 bucks. Do I think that this is worth 40 bucks? I would say yes, absolutely. This is definitely worth $40 if you're somebody who is into collecting different editions of Tolkien books, guilty. Or if you know somebody who is. This is a great gift, you know, if you're looking for a Christmas gift or birthday gift or something like that, yeah, for 40 bucks, definitely. This one is a little bit tougher sell for me. It goes right now on the secondary market for, I think, 130 bucks. I'm sure that that'll fluctuate, so by the time you see this video, it might be a little bit different. But point being, right now it's a little over 3 times more than this version. And you have to be a pretty serious collector to really want to get this. I will say, if you got the other version, it stacks up really nice right next to it, right? And so does the other one, for that matter. If we put them all next to each other, they look really nice together. So it's kind of, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? So if you got one, you probably should get the other one. Which reminds me, I'm really hoping next year they gotta do The Hobbit, right? They have to. And especially with the leather-bound versions, if they do a Hobbit, we all know what color it has to be, right? It has to be green. And why is that? Well, because it has to match up with these absolute classics. Anyway, let me know what you guys all think of this stuff. Hit the comments below. On your way down there, don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment on the fact that, yeah, you noticed that there were 2 extras of these. Oh, what are we gonna do with those? I think we're gonna have to do a giveaway. So make sure you stay tuned, stay subscribed. I'll be doing some giveaways, probably on some upcoming live streams. So That'll be coming up. Thanks everybody for watching. I will see you next time.